What's going on, guys, and welcome back to WrestleRant, where I, Graham Jason Matthews, break down all the pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network, as well as on the Impact Plus streaming service. Today we're talking Bound for Glory 2012. I had a Bound for Glory this Sunday. It's been a while since I last did a TNA pay-per-view review here on the channel, probably a few months. But I did want to watch this for a few different reasons. One, it's been a while since I've last seen it. Bound for Glory 2012. Obviously, also, Bound for Glory is this Sunday, like I said earlier, and when I watched it the first time, when I watched it to watch for WrestleRant, when I recently rewatched it, it was Monday, which was the 7-year anniversary of the event. It's been that long since it originally aired, which is crazy. I remember watching this live. I remember watching Impact Live every single week, and they were putting on good show after good show after good show. And they did the exact same thing here. 2012, I would argue, was the peak of Impact. They had a lot of positive buzz, and you can always argue, 05 was 06 when the X Division was killing it. Yeah, but and they had buzz at that point when they first started up in 02, and from that point forward. I would argue, though, every show they were putting on at this point was better than what WWE was putting out back in 2012. And this was the culmination of it all. Unfortunately, they couldn't maintain the momentum, and the pay-per-view quality just went down going into 2013. It just was not as good. But they were at their best, I would argue, in the second half of 2012, including this event. It was really, really good. We kicked off the show with the X Division Championship up for grabs between Rob Van Dam and the then-champion Zema Ion. And also, too, take a drink every single time you hear a former WWE or current WWE star's name on this list of matches. Zema Ion currently in NXT. Rob Van Dam may be the only person on this show, I think he is, that is still in TNA. Austin Aries returned. He was in the main event of the show. He returned last year, is no longer there. Rob Van Dam is the only person on this card that is still with Impact, which is unbelievable to me. And even he went to WWE for a while in 2013 and 2014 before returning to Impact earlier this year. But he went for the X Division Championship on this show. The match was good. Was far from an exciting opener, but I thought it was all right. Good match. They worked well together. Rob Van Dam, a lot of his work in Impact was just really uninspired, was just not that good. He was not the RVD of old, and that was not a TNA issue because he kind of had that problem in WWE as well. But after he left WWE the first time in 05, 06, I think it was 2007 actually, now that I think about it. After he left WWE in 2007, a lot of his matches in Impact from 2010 onward were just flat. Like, the guy was having matches for the sake of having matches. They were just matches. Like, there was nothing all that special about Rob Van Dam and TNA. And this was not really that case. I thought he kind of put his best foot forward on the way out. He did end up leaving the company by early 2013. But he was having some good matches while X Division champion with the likes of Zema Ion, later Kenny King. But this was a good match, though, and kind of kicked off the night on a high note. Samoa Joe, I believe the only champion on the show to successfully retain his championship, beat Magnus, now known as Nick Aldis, of course, the current NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, to retain the TNA Television Championship. Very good match here. These guys had great chemistry. They spent the better part of 2012 teaming as partners, were former TNA World Tag Team Champions together, so it was hardly a surprise that they had great chemistry. But it was a nice undercard match, very clean, very straightforward, no bullshit, no interference, just a really good wrestling match with a really good showing from Magnus in defeat. Would have been cool if he came out on top here as the new TV champion, but it wasn't that big of a deal. He had a really good showing in defeat, which was smart, and then Samoa Joe still the champion. I'm not sure how much longer he held that championship for. I don't know how long Joe was champion for. But that's a role that he would have been perfect in for a little while after this, just because he was great in that role of, setting back challengers and putting on quality matches in the undercard, really holding down the undercard. I don't think he ever recaptured the X Division Championship in 2012. I don't think he did. He did a few years after this, I believe in 2014, if I'm not mistaken. But that would have been another really nice role for Joe as a guy who was a veteran in TNA at this point, putting other people over and getting other people over by having them put on good matches. But that was a really good match. We then had my favorite match, not only of the night, not only of the entire year, but one of my favorite TNA matches, period, in a street fight with King Mo, of all people, serving as the special guest referee. Why, I have no idea. It was a street fight between Bobby Roode and James Storm, former Beer Money tag team partners. like I said, one of my favorite, if not my favorite, TNA match of all time. The story going into this was so fucking great. So, gotta rewind a little bit. They recapped everything in the video package preceding this match. But, I mean, aside from their history as beer money, dating back to 2008 or so, it was 1 year earlier that James Storm, I think almost exactly 8 years ago today, or no, tomorrow when this goes up, 8 years ago, this weekend, we'll say, James Storm beat Kurt Angle for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, something that Bobby Roode could not do at Bound for Glory. Bobby Roode lost to Kurt Angle at Bound for Glory, yet James Storm got the job done when Bobby Roode couldn't, days later on Impact. So they really should have dragged it out longer than they did, but they fast-forwarded it for whatever reason. I'm not sure if James Storm was hurt or whatever the reason was that they kind of sped through the feud and sped the big angle, the big payoff with Bobby returning heel and beating Storm for that championship. Literally 2 weeks after Storm won it, Bobby Roode was the new champion by becoming a full-fledged heel almost overnight. And it was a little forced, but he grew into the role, became a great top heel on his own, Bobby Roode did. And he was champion for a long time. He was champion up until July when he lost the championship. I think he became the longest reigning TNA champion of all time, and he might still be to this day. But he ended up losing the title to not Storm, which is what should have happened with Storm winning the Bound for Glory series. Lost the belt but he lost the belt to Austin Aries at Destination X, which was an amazing match. Aries was the hot hand at that point. I don't blame them for putting the belt on Aries. Aries was very frustrated. I saw him talk in an interview recently about how he, was not happy with the fact that they took the championship off him on this show because he was so hot as a babyface at that point. He hated turning heel. More on that later, though. And he even suggested in that same interview that what if they did a three-way between himself, Storm, and Bobby Roode for the TNA Championship. Obviously, they went a different direction. They had Jeff Hardy win the Bound for Glory series and his story of redemption, blah, blah, blah. So Storm and Roode kind of got the short end of the stick. Storm never ended up regaining the TNA World Heavyweight Championship and they got put in the undercard of the show. Really should have been the main event. It was by far the best match in the entire show. And the main event was great. As great as it was, this match stole the show. They were stupid for putting this on as early as they did, because the match was phenomenal. Great storytelling, great action, great drama, great hardcore shit. Like, Storm was bleeding a friggin' river at one point. There was like a river of blood streaming down his face. It was such a great visual. And they kind of tied back to all the little details that were featured throughout their entire feud. James Storm hit Bobby Roode with a beer bottle over the head before knocking him out with a last call super kick. The move that he could never hit on Bobby, that he could never, win the TNA Championship with. He could never give Bobby Roode his comeuppance at any point during their feud, but he finally did here. My only real nitpick of the match was the fact that King Mo did not need to be involved at all. King Mo served zero purpose. I think he may have gotten involved at one point when he got shoved. He shoved, I think, Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode got in his face. King Mo shoved Bobby. They only really did it, TNA did, for the publicity, the mainstream attention, whatever. I thought it was still forced nonetheless. So he shoves Bobby, and then Bobby eats a last call super kick. I honestly thought that was it. I have not seen this match in a long time. But Storm, hits the last call. Bobby Roode kicks out. The match continues. They beat the holy shit out of each other all around ringside. It was a great, great match. In the end, as I said, leading to Bobby Roode eating a beer bottle shot to the skull from Storm. Storm following that up with a last call super kick and picking up the 1-2-3. So he finally gets what he deserves. He was so mega over here. TNA were idiots for not capitalizing on that momentum. He really should have been world champion right after that again, but they didn't do anything about it. They just failed to follow up on it properly. We then had Joey Ryan versus Al Snow, which sounds like an incredibly random match. But this had a good story behind it. Joey Ryan tried out for TNA months earlier via the gut check thing, which was terrible. And thankfully that was done away with rather quickly. And he did not earn a contract. Didn't earn a contract thanks to Al Snow, who was not a fan of his. He was a judge. Al Snow serving as one of the judges on the panel that determined whether they got contracts or not. So Joey Ryan took that to heart, tried to get himself, back on the roster by attacking Al Snow. Al Snow attacked him. Joey Ryan threatened to sue him. And that led to Ryan facing Al Snow on the show, where if Ryan beat Al Snow, he would get a permanent roster spot. And If El Snow won, nothing would come of Joey Ryan on the Impact roster. So it was a basic match with a simple stipulation, which I appreciated. Joey Ryan has never really done a lot for me, and El Snow really was well past his prime at this point, and he's still making appearances for Impact on screen, which makes no sense to me. I mean, he held his own here, but the match was just really boring. And the only thing really worth noting about this was the fact that Matt Morgan returned, who was gone from TNA for about, 6 months maybe. He left TNA earlier on in 2012, if not late 2011, came back here and helped Joey Ryan pick up the win, and in the process becoming a contracted member of the Impact roster. And it would have meant something, it would have actually mattered had Joey Ryan stuck around. I think Matt Morgan was gone the following year, and Joey Ryan was gone within a year as well. So this really served no purpose. In a three-way tag team match for the TNA World Tag Team Championships, we had Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez knocking off AJ Styles and Kurt Angle, hell of a dream team, and Bad Influence for the TNA World Tag Team Championships. Fun match, at least when Kurt, AJ, and Bad Influence were in the ring. Chavo and Hernandez, they weren't a terrible tag team, but it was so random, and you can tell they were trying so hard, TNA was, to make Chavo and Hernandez the next, Guerreros, like Chavo and Eddie Guerrero. Because Chavo with the over-the-top, Eddie tribute, I appreciate a good Eddie tribute, but when you do it every friggin' match with the Three Amigos and the post-match promos dedicating their win to Eddie Guerrero, it got really old really fast. And Chavo's Impact run did not stick. I think he was gone from the company by late 2013, I think. He was not a big Chavo fan of TNA. The guy was never really that excited to begin with in WWE, but, he did some stuff in TNA, but he and Hernandez were not a great tag team because they were just there. They were a tag team for the sake of being a tag team because Hernandez didn't have Homicide. He was unavailable, and they kind of wanted to be Los Guerreros meet LAX, and that's just not what it was. They were like the two inferior members of their respective tag teams, but they won here because Impact wanted them to win. I'm not sure why. It was kind of random. And the crowd was not happy about it either. They didn't outright boo, but there were audible boos when they won because they very clearly wanted either AJ and Angle to become the champions again, who were being wasted in the tag team division at this point, or Bad Influence, who were awesome, and who were the champions coming in. But a good match, though, nonetheless. For the TNA Knockouts Championship, we had Miss Tessmacher, otherwise known as Brooke Adams, facing her former teacher, Tara. They were former Knockouts Tag Team Champions together. I thought they were a good tag team. I love the story here. It made a lot of sense. Tessmacher was finally coming into her own as a singles competitor, and she got a lot better on her own, too, compared to her days in WWE. She got a lot better as a wrestler in TNA. She had some really good matches with Gail Kim and a few other people. And then she met Tara, who, met Tara in the ring. Ed already knew her from their time as a tag team. And they faced off, they feuded, she beat Tara at Victory Road. Tara then subsequently turned heel on Miss Tessmacher, setting up a rematch for Bound for Glory. Had a great story, the match just fell flat. It was not good, the effort it didn't really feel like it was there. Just kind of disjointed, sloppy, boring, went all of 5 or 6 minutes, kind of uneventful for a Bound for Glory championship match. One of the better built women's matches in recent years in Impact at Bound for Glory. But the match was completely underwhelming. So Tara wins clean, which was also disappointing. I figured she would win, but for Tessmacher to lose as decisively as she did was kind of disappointing considering how long they had spent to build her up. So Tara wins, and then she introduces her boo, that being Jesse Goddard from Big Brother. No one gave a fuck about who this guy was. No one knew who he was. No one gave two shits. This went over like a fart in church. Did the reveal of Jesse on this show. And the pairing never really stuck. Tara was gone from TNA the following year after, she was managing the bromance for a while. I think it was her, Robbie E, and Jesse Goddard. But it never really went anywhere, and she was gone by the summer of 2013. We then had a no disqualification match between Aces and Eights. God, remember Aces and Eights? What a terrible, terrible stable. Represented by Doc and Knox. I'm not sure if we knew their names at this point. But it was Doc and Knox taking on Bully Ray and Sting. So if Bully Ray and Sting won, Aces and Eights would have gone away. But because Aces and Eights won this match, they gained full control to the Impact Zone. They were interfering in all these matches and storylines for years and years and years. For months and months and months. God, thank God it wasn't years and years. The angle lasted around a year and a half, But that was about it, though. Thankfully, it wasn't any longer, but they were around for months and months and months. They wanted full access to the Impact Zone. They got it here by winning this match. And the match was an all-right brawl. Wasn't overly exciting. It was cool to see Bully Ray doning the Sting face paint. I thought that was kind of cool. Other than that, though, this match wasn't overly special. It was decent for what it was. Aces and Eights ended up going over, like I said, after interference from another member who ended up being revealed as Devon. We didn't know that Doc was Luke Gallows, and we didn't know that Knox was the former Mike Knox. They weren't revealed until much later on. But we did know that Devon was the leader after being revealed after the match by Sting, and Bully Ray was in shock. And then we later found out that Bully Ray was the leader behind the entire thing, which was also weird, so... this didn't really make much sense in the long run, but as a match, it was okay. Better than I thought it would be. And then we got to the main event for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Jeff Hardy taking on the champion Austin Aries. Austin Aries fought hard, he said, in that interview that he did recently with Killer Cross on his Instagram live feed or whatever, that he fought hard to be the babyface here alongside Jeff Hardy, because he was really hot as a face, but Impact had to go ahead and turn him heel like days before the pay-per-view, which made no sense. But it was a really good match. They had a great chemistry. The crowd was really behind Austin Aries, probably more than Impact wanted them to be. Just because he was a heel here. They were supposed to be rallying behind Hardy as he, kind of completed his redemption story. And it was a great match, and Jeff Hardy winning made sense. I agree with the outcome. But Austin Aries having a 3-month run as champion before dropping it and never to regain it, at least not for another 5 or 6 years, was very questionable because he was really over at this point. But it was a really good match. Hardy was over. It made sense. Had his whole redemption story. Again, it was a nice feel-good ending to the show. And Aries winning would have been fine, but again, at the same time, Impact had closed so many of their Bound for Glory series shows, or Bound for Glory shows just in general. Not the Bound for Glory series. I don't know why I said that. They had closed so many of their Bound for Glory shows years preceding this on a sour note. 08, not 09, 08, 2010, 2011, all ended with a heel winning, I think. And it was really disappointing. So having Hardy win here made sense. It was a great match. Was finally the champion again after like a year and a half. So again, a good feel-good story, and it was a great match to close out a very good show, at least by TNA standards back in 2012. They were killing it, firing in all cylinders at this point, and this was the culmination of their hard work, all their buzz that they had back in 2012. With a stacked roster, I am shocked. Given who was in charge, I'm not, but it's really sad to see how far Impact has fallen since then. And the company's a lot better now consistently. They have a really good roster, here in 2019. But they lost a lot of their buzz due to repeatedly bad decisions made by management over the years. But this was a really good show, though. Check it out on the Impact Plus streaming service before Bound for Glory this Sunday. Nonetheless, guys, have a great rest of your weekend. Before Bound for Glory on Sunday, be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more content. And I'll be back soon with more videos here on the channel. Until then, guys, enjoy Bound for Glory on Sunday, and I'll catch your ass down the road.